Welcome. You're listening to KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM, the Ask Brien radio show. Like no other station in the world! We are like no other station in the world. We have so many extra things here, and we're going to discuss those later on today. But for people that have never listened to the Ask Brien radio show, Brien is spelled with an E, and everyone always asks us, why is Brien spelled with an E? You know, I had friends of mine when I was younger, or even today, and their name is spelled B-R-Y-A-N or B-R-I-A-N, and you spelled it B-R-I-E-N, and we say this every week, but we are not an Irish pub. So why in the world do we spell Brien with an E? And we have our expert E-man, here today. He's not on the show every time, but we do try to have him on.
I would
as often
say
as
like
possible.
75% of the time.
Where were you last week?
Well,
Dun dun dun!
you know exactly where I was last week. I'm not feeling well.
Oh, he was in COVID.
I was in
Double
COVID.
hockey stick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, COVID, watching the All-Star game, I'm sure. Okay.
I was actually, but I was, but
Because it was in Los Angeles.
I wasn't there. I was quarantined in my room actually watching that. But it was fun. That was fun.
It was fun.
Yeah.
But there's no E in Los Angeles Dodgers. There is.
No, there is. There is.
In Dodgers.
Mm-hmm.
In
There
the
it
Dodgers,
is.
but not in Los Angeles.
No,
Angeles.
No quarantine either.
There is a E in quarantine.
There is
It's
an
at
E
the
in quarantine.
It's at the end.
No,
it's
I
at the
said
end.
there's no fun in quarantine. I didn't say there's
Oh,
no E
no,
in quarantine.
definitely not.
Well, that's why there's no E in fun.
That's also true. That is also very true.
So, Patrick,
Hi.
how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing
Are you-
much better.
Are you fine now?
Yeah, I'm much better.
I like your shirt. It says "Get covered."
it's just my health insurance.
Hey, Patrick, I might have a new E for you, but this is quite a stretch. So last week, this is just my southern accent. So last week you were eel.
Eel. Oh, I love that. Tracy, that's your honorary one. I love that because you could pull it off with the accent. I love that. I really do.
Unfortunately, we
that's fun.
don't have any eels on the show.
Well, that's what she's saying is southern for ill.
Well,
Yeah, exactly.
let's not make fun of her.
But
Because you're going to open up a whole can of worms there.
I did it to myself. So what are you going to do?
Well,
I like it, Tracy.
can we have at least one E?
Yes.
Besides an engineer and Emily?
Education, because we are very educated on the Ask Brien show.
I don't know if we're educated. We try to teach people.
We like to educate people, too.
I don't know that we're educated. I don't know your background.
Communications. Got a
So you
bachelor's.
have a college degree?
I do have a college degree.
All right.
A bachelor's in communications. Carleton
Bachelor's.
University.
A bachelor's. That means you're single.
I am, too, so it's fine.
What other E's do we have?
Let's see. We have experience, because everybody that appears on the Ask Brien show is very experienced in their job or field.
And for this episode, we're not going to ask you what qualifies for experience. We're just going to have Emily explain it to us. So,
Fair
Emily,
enough.
go ahead.
What?
Yay.
There's no E in what?
40 hours.
A week.
You wanted to do it? 40
No.
hours a week. That's all I know. For 10,000 hours or something by the end of the year.
How about 50 weeks in a year because there's 2 weeks for vacation? There's 52 weeks in a year and you get 2 weeks off for vacation. That's 50 weeks, right?
Okay.
So 50 times 40 is what?
200.
Oh, good Lord.
Oh, my God.
Dude, I need a calculator for 50 times 40. I swear, I'm not even lying.
Emily's going to be in charge of the budget now for KHTS. All right, 50
I don't
hours.
think our guests are going to approve of that.
50 weeks a year, 40 hours a week is 2,000 times 5 years is 10,000.
I'm hurt. Turning my mic off.
In shame.
And Emily spells hurt H-E-R-T because there's an E in it.
H-E-R-T.
Hurt.
Like Hertzfield.
All right, so what other reasons do I have an E?
So we do have, you in particular bring the enthusiasm and the...
Excitement!
There we go. Let's see, we had...
And I am electrifying.
Grease
No,
lightning.
that's grease lightning electrifying.
But no, she brings it, though. She brings the
She
electrifying.
does bring the electrifying, but you got to have that grease lightning.
She gotta have the grease lightning.
Hey, I own the electrifying, okay? Just because I
You
didn't
own it.
invent doesn't
Excuse me.
mean I don't-
I was the one who
own it.
brought it up. And by the
You
way,
were.
there's a very, very big E, and most of our listeners qualify for this group.
Big E Smalls?
Entrepreneur.
Ah, entrepreneur.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
That's a very big E, right?
Mhm,
And that's
that
who
is
we cater to. We try to educate
Entrepreneurs.
entrepreneurs.
Indeed.
That's our big goal.
Absolutely.
Any other E's?
I mean, still recovering from brain fog here, so you got to help me here.
Well, what
I'm
about
going
an
blank.
excellent expert?
An excellent expert. You already said you already said, and empathy. Bingo.
Please, what is that?
Patty, you need to have your energy back.
Haha, energy. I mean, it's coming back.
When?
Come on, man.
It's just an E.
It's coming back at the same time the disco era will come back.
Disco, the 70s.
Exactly. Go wear your white suit to work.
I wish I had a white suit. I don't. I do have a nice blue one.
Well, wear that one time. One time for our show.
I
you pick a
swear.
week. Wear a suit.
No, everybody's gonna be like just being wow. I look good in it.
You're gonna be like John Travolta.
Minus the Scientology, maybe.
Let's not get too political here. I think that's most of the E's.
I think so.
And I do think we have a great show today. We have two people on today. They are actually a team, and they actually have a very interesting concept. You may know them. I don't know. Do you know them?
I'm pretty sure I do.
I think they give you a signature every couple of weeks.
Yeah. No, that's accurate.
Or maybe they don't.
No. They do. They definitely do.
Well, thanks. I really appreciate this, Patrick. Thanks a lot.
Of course.
I'm hoping you're feeling better.
Thank you. I am.
Do you tested negative, I hope?
Yes.
Okay, so now I don't need to get my cootie shot or vaccination or whatever. Okay, great.
All right. I will go get your guest.
Well, thank you very much. But we
course.
also have a guest on the air. Carl, are you there? I guess Carl's not there.
I am here.
Oh, you
Yep,
are.
He was
I'm
still
here.
on hold.
He was probably muting us. And for good reason. Anyway. So, Carl, you have a lot of background. I think we were on the show maybe 5.5 years ago when we started. And so we have a couple questions. First of all, why don't you tell everybody who you are and your connection to KHTS, and then we can go on.
Sure, and I'm sorry, Pete, but it took me like 3 minutes because I think I'm in a cell area that's really bad. So let me call back in 2 minutes.
No problem.
You guys stall for a minute.
We're gonna attack your team member, Jerry. Nice to see you.
Brien with an E and an I.
Exactly, and there's no I in team. So, couple questions for you. A little bit about your background. What is your background, and what is your connection to KHTS?
The owner of KHTS, along with my husband.
Where's your dun dun dun? That's what you should do. The owner of the company. Dun
Ignore
dun
him.
dun.
I pay you. Ignore him. He does not pay you.
Advertising pays for this show.
Emily, remember that.
Advertising pays for the show.
I like her.
40 hours
like her
times
already.
52 weeks. Just put a sign up front that says pound sand.
I already
whoa.
like you, Jerry.
Second generation radio. Actually, just
So what does that mean? Does it mean your father was
my
in the radio?
father was in radio.
What did he do?
He did sales in San Diego radio. I was born in San Diego and then moved up. KBC moved him up in the 70s, and I grew up in radio. He was in radio longer than I was alive.
So, the question I have, radio. All right, radio was very popular when it came out, probably in the 30s, probably through the 50s and 60s, when we had television come in, and then since then we've had the internet. So, how does radio still make it today with social media and TV and all the time?
Well, so my brilliant husband, many years ago, decided to, well, first of all, in Santa Clarita, very hyper-local. We eat, breathe, everything Santa Clarita. And we've been giving the community information on how to get to work. They can listen to their second grader or fourth grader read a book report on the air. We do lobbying trips to Sacramento to make Santa Clarita better. We're going in September to D.C. with our congressperson, Mike Garcia, to...
Actually, I'm going on that trip.
Yes, I know that. To get over the many years we've been doing this, we have raised many millions of dollars, whether it's been for the college or for roads in the community and other things, mental health. We also put on a home and garden show with 20,000 plus attendees that's over 10 years old. So it's not just a radio station. And during the 2006 and 7 downturn in the market, my husband was really getting into the web before radio stations were. We built a website and saw the value, and we learned over the years on, as we say, the secret sauce on what Google's looking for.
Wow.
And having the largest website in town, we can get a client on page one with doing certain things that we do to help them out. And then they don't have to pay for Google AdWords, which we don't believe in.
Well, I want to go into that, but as a comeback, I have to say I always thought special sauce had to do with a Big Mac.
Well, not anymore.
Well,
There
I don't
you
know.
go.
I listened to that commercial all along.
Okay, well, you got to stop watching TV then.
2 all beef patties, special sauce,
There we go.
lettuce, cheese. So obviously the Big Mac and KHTS both have a special sauce.
Yes, we
But
do.
I don't think it's the same special sauce.
No, it's not.
Probably more nutritional.
Yeah, yeah, a lot more.
So what made you? Well, actually, I'm going to ask this to Carl. Carl, you there?
I'm here. Yep.
So what made you think way back when that Google was a good way for your radio station to go? Why did you kind of pivot into that area? You have a radio station.
Actually, we fell into it, and we did it before Google was even around. So no one even knew that Google was going to happen. But what happened for us is back in 2003, there was, if you put the time machine back then, no one was doing hard news on the web. That's difficult to believe in 2022. But in 2003, if you went back to the New York Times or the LA Times or the Washington Post, you might find a gardening story added on once a week. And the rest of it was a brochure for the paper. They were scared. They didn't want to hurt their main revenue stream, which was the physical newspaper. So we managed to go on with our website with hard news just as a fire was hitting on the west side, and all of Stevenson Ranch and West Ridge and Magic Mountain, they were all had to be evacuated. And when the dust settled on it, we looked at their website, and we had hundreds of thousands of people coming to the website because we were putting fire information on there, and all the other websites in town, whether it was the city or College of the Canyons or the school district or individual realtors, they were all putting links to us. And we realized at that point that the kind of light bulb went off like a cartoon and said, oh, we're not in the radio business anymore. We're in the information business. And we stuck with the same philosophy we have with the radio station competing with the LA stations by being hyper-local and covering just Santa Clarita. We did the same thing on the web, had about a 4 or 5 year lead on the newspapers. Google came around in between that time, and because we were doing news, Google had decided that they were going to become an aggregator of news, and so they made us one of the first official news websites of Google, and so that was it. That's how we became such a powerful entity on the web, by being hyper-local and then getting that boost later on when Google came around.
Now, when you say aggregate, is that kind of like Associated Press when they have all the articles and they're sharing them around? Or what do you mean by aggregator?
Yeah, what I mean by that is originally Google was thinking about possibly doing news themselves. And they then decided that wasn't a good idea, that they would be better off pulling news websites from around the country and putting them on as Google News, but they would still have the brand of each entity. So for us, our stories were getting pulled. We would post a story, and within 20 seconds, it would appear on Google and in part of their news feature. So if you searched for whatever that you wanted to with our keywords in it, it would pop up immediately on the first page as the first item and would stay on there for quite some time doing that. And so we had basically, if you recall, you're old enough, Peter, to remember the Good Housekeeping seal of approval. most of our listeners are too young to remember that.
Well, Ask Brien
But-
has that.
but-
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Did Brien know that?
Yes, I did.
You did.
It was
Yeah.
kind of like a seal of approval that if you had that, you know.
Exactly. So we had the Google seal of approval, and along with a few hundred other websites. But here in Southern California, it really was only the L.A. Times and at the time the Daily News, and then later on the Santa Cruz Signal. They were the only ones that also had that seal of approval. So all of us had a leg up over everyone else when we wanted to post a story.
So, thank you, Carl. So, Jerry, I have a question for you now.
Peter Brien.
And there's two E's in Peter. So, we're going to double you up on that one. So, that was very interesting what Carl was saying, but I want to know now today, because you say you've pivoted, you still are a radio show, or station, I should say, and then you're pivoting more into the internet. How are you doing that?
We are building websites, and we're doing search engine optimization for our clients. So, for instance, a lot of my clients will come from, Yelp, where they're taking a lot of money and they're not able to stay in business. We take that money and for a lot less, get them on the front page one of the Google search, and then their business explodes.
Now, is that because they're linking to you, which you've been around for many, many years, or?
Well, we've built their website, and we sit down with clients and go through a lot of information before we, build their website, for the simple fact that a consumer, let's say it's a plumber, is going to be able to find you on the front page.
That's pretty amazing that you can get to the front page that quickly. Usually, my understanding is it takes many, many years. Emily's saying she's number one, or we have 1 minute.
And she's actually right.
Number one, what? Okay, so
I could.
I have an acronym, but I won't use it on air.
Okay.
Especially for many, many reasons. So we have about 30, 40 seconds. So how can somebody? It boggles my mind that somebody can get to the front page of Google that quickly. Explain to me how that's possible. You only have about 30 seconds.
Okay, so we sit down with a client and we go through their top 9 to 14 keywords, meta tags that describe what they do, where they are at. We put them in stories with a certain amount of word count on our website, and then a B version, can't be the same one, on their website that stays there forever, so it's part of their platform. And when Google sees us with those words, it's going to automatically attach to them.
We're going to take a break and come back, but when we do, everyone has been calling me and asking me on the phone, what is a B version? So you're going to have to tell everybody. Okay. We'll be right back. You're listening to KHTS 1220, 98.1 FM, the Ask Brien Show. Welcome back. You're listening to KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. That's my New York line. And
So you don't want to... Ah!
woohoo! Another screamer. I love it. So,
Only on Thursdays
Sam
at 1 o'clock.
Kinnison. All right. So, before we left, you were talking about the B version.
The B version.
What is the B version?
It is...
And we're talking about SEO or concept, right?
So it's, let's say we're describing a plumber in town that does water heaters. We do an A version on our site, and then we do a B version that's different because it can't be the same thing. Google won't recognize it on their site. So we still talk about water heaters and about whatever the plumber being in Santa Clarita, blah, 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 but it can't be the same thing. So that's part of the secret sauce.
Well, okay. Well, we don't give away too many secrets because that is your secret sauce. Now, every time they do an update, you have to do it on an A and the B side, or what?
Well, some of our clients we do weekly stories for, an A and a B.
Wow.
Yeah. Who knew?
Who knew? Tracy, you said you had some questions for Carl. Go ahead.
Well, Carl, I wanted to ask, and I actually would like to ask this question and have each of you answer it. So, in my experience of working with entrepreneurs, there's always a question that comes up about when you are husband and wife, and so you're married to each other and you're business partners, what is one of the best suggestions you could make for having that be a successful partnership outside of the marriage and inside of the marriage?
That's a good question, and I'll give two answers to it. When we first started running the radio station, and we had worked together at a network before this, a large radio network, but we had a large staff and we weren't owners. When we bought the radio station, I visited a friend of mine who he and his wife had bought a station in Santa Barbara, and their real estate was very expensive, so they were sharing a tiny office about 8 by 8 next to each other, and I just hit myself in the head and thought if I did that with Jerry, we would never survive. So I said, Howard, how do you survive that? How do you manage to be in that same office? And he said, early on I learned 3 magic words. And I said, what was that? He said, I was wrong. and,
Okay, everyone.
So I took up his mantra.
Everywhere.
And that's why I'm single. I say I'm never wrong.
Right, there we go.
Yeah,
I was wrong.
Correct.
Worked really, really well. We work on separate floors when I was at the station, and for many, many years. And we also, one of our coaches at one point gave us some good advice when we weren't working, and that's when we went home and went for a walk. We used to, bring work home with us all the time. And he made a suggestion that is a great piece of advice, and that is when you go for a walk, spend half the walk talking about work, and then the other half of the walk you're not allowed to talk about work. And so we've pretty much taken that as part of our mantra as well, and trying and find a balance between the two. It's not always easy because running the radio station, it's 24/7. Especially in this day and age with texts and cell phones and emails, but we do our best to try and balance it out. Wouldn't you say, Jerry?
Yes. And actually, Carl's been out of the office now for almost 2.5 years, and it's more difficult with him out of the office. So I don't know if I want to say I miss you, Carl. But I do miss you being in the office, helping more. There we go.
Oh, I love it. So were you, early on, were you always co-working together? And when you decided to buy the stations, did you have a very specific conversation about each other's roles and responsibilities so that you weren't stepping on each other's toes? More so for the staff as well, like their perception of roles and responsibilities as well.
Well, I think that... Oh.
I was going to say, when we first bought the station, the station had been on the air about 6 months. This is back in 1990, and had gone into bankruptcy immediately. So we were weaving it out of bankruptcy, and in order to still be able to live, Jerry earned a paycheck by staying with the network. And we moved up here to Santa Clarita. She continued to work for the radio network where we were both working, so we had a paycheck coming in. And I ended up working and getting the radio station back on track. And so Jerry didn't come on board till 5 years later when we started buying other radio stations. This was after the 94 earthquake. She left the network, and by that time the station was able to handle our salaries without her having to work at the network. And by then I was traveling. We were involved with stations in Ventura and the Antelope Valley, so I was commuting a good chunk of the time. So we weren't right on top of each other. We each had our own roles at that time. So I think it was an easier transition than if we were like my friend Howard plopped in the same office in Santa Barbara. I would have to be saying I was wrong a lot more often than I do.
True that. True that.
Well, that's very interesting. We have our sponsorship break coming up right now. So, Mandy, are you there?
I am here.
All
Hello.
right. So, for people,
Hi, Mandy.
Hi.
So, for people that don't know, this show, Ask Brien Radio, is sponsored by two people: Twisted Noodles of Albany Farms and Legal Steps. So, please explain to everybody what is Twisted Noodles, other than, we're not talking about someone who has lacking brain power.
Okay, well, Twisted Noodles is our brand name. They are ramen noodles. We currently are in the process of opening our first food manufacturing facility located in Belfast, South Dakota. And so we're currently, we're working feverishly to get things buttoned up, and we'll start shipping to customers within the next month or so.
And what is the distinction of Twisted Noodles as compared to other ramen noodles?
First of all, our R&D team is hard at work with the next twisted flavor. So we plan to have some fun with our ramen, and I think that's what sets us apart from the others. This brand will be sweeping the country with twisted, crazy flavors that we believe will have our customers continuing to shop those aisles and wonder what's next for Twisted Noodles.
That sounds great. And what is Legal Steps? What do they do?
Legal Steps, yes. Steps spelt with a Z.
Why do you spell it with a Z? Why is it spelled with a Z?
I was going to ask you. That's because we teach you everything from A to Z.
Well, I trained you well.
You did.
And
basically, we provide everything you need to start a business, whether it be, how to create an LLC or how to choose and register your business name or, how to obtain business permits or licenses. Every individual has different needs for their business, and legal entities are not a one-size-fits-all solution. So we help you every step of the way.
And my understanding is this is a do-it-yourself, so you don't need to hire a lawyer or go out to LegalZoom or concept
absolutely.
like that.
Yep, that's the whole purpose of it.
Well, that sounds great. Thank you very much, and until next week, we appreciate your sponsorship. And
thank you.
Thank you very much, Mandy. And we're back. Tracy, you had more questions?
Yes, I've always been fascinated with radio. I spent 20 years working in radio as part of my professional career, so it's just a really fun interview for me to talk to you guys. So from my experience in working with radio, in radio for so long, I've seen a lot of really, really big changes. And I just wondered if you could share in a lot of, I understand what you've done with the internet aspect of revenue modeling has been important to grow your business. But what are some of the big things that you've seen happen in radio, even in the last decade? And where are the areas where the revenue is growing on the broadcast side of the business?
Well, I think the biggest change is consolidation, which really took place in the late 90s when suddenly the FCC, the government, allowed companies to own hundreds and thousands of radio stations. Up to that point, you could only own 16 around the country. So what happened was you had giant broadcast entities like Viacom and Disney, Clear Channel, buying hundreds, thousands of radio stations. Wall Street got in the mix, and you no longer had a mom-and-pop situation that still exists with our station. There are very few stations like ours anymore. So I think that has changed dramatically. And with Wall Street being involved, it's a whole different ballgame with the bottom line and also in terms of local ownership and knowing the community. That is rare now. It still does exist, but mostly in very small markets. As far as the revenue streams on the broadcast side, we now have multiple amounts of funnels. So for many years, all we had was the AM 1220 signal. Recently, in the last 4 or 5 years, we're able to add the FM into the mix, so we now can simulcast with both signals. With the internet, we stream. We have a phone app on it. We go to different. You asked before what portals exist, but they're radio portals like TuneIn and iHeartRadio and dozens of others on the internet where we push our signal out, get picked up, and can be listened to there. So that when you're walking to your house, if you have a smart speaker and say, Alexa, turn on the hometown station, Clarita, it will pop up right into us. Some of the new cars, particularly the Teslas right now, are all internet radio. So you go in and turn on the dashboard, and you want our station. You're listening to our station on TuneIn. We had a host who was in radio for many, many years. He owned a Tesla and was wondering why he could still hear the station when he drove to LAX, realizing he wasn't hearing the station he was listening to the station for weeks and weeks and weeks, not realizing he was listening to the station off the internet as opposed to the terrestrial airwaves. So it's shifted a lot.
And how has that shifted within the business modeling side? Have you been able to expand your revenue based on the broadcasting side outside of the local area as well, or is it still primarily focused on the local area with local businesses?
It's still the local area, and even with the internet, the majority of it is local area, although we certainly have national ads on there. Because of our programming, the content, we feel for us to compete against the big guys, we need to be hyper-local. And what I mean by that is we need to focus on Santa Clarita, because the bottom line is KNX or anybody else can't talk about a fire hydrant breaking on Lyons Avenue, and we can. We can cover that and maneuver traffic that way. We're the only ones that can cover, high school football or coffee with the mayor, or really focus 100% on our valley. And because we live in the valley and have lived here for 32 years, we know this valley intimately and can navigate around and give out information that very few people are capable of doing because they don't have the history that we have.
Which is what makes radio so powerful and is what it is that whole hyper local component is what makes people want to listen to radio versus Spotify or a playlist on iTunes or something like that. So I love that you guys stay so locally focused. But what are some of the challenges that you face with like air talents, for example? Are all your air talents local there, or do you do any simulcasting?
And we're going to hold that question for a commercial break. You listen to KHTS 1220, 98.1 FM. Welcome back. You listen to KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. And before we continue this interview, I just wanted to let everybody know that Jerry and Carl had celebrated a recent anniversary, 31 years. So do you have a clapping thing there? Where's your clapping? Oh, my God. I thought you had one of those things. Come on. All right. Congratulations.
Tracy, if you could only see the board ops looking at Peter when he
well, we have. We've done that before. We've had all the celebration, whatever. Anyway, we don't have...
I have theater of the mind, Jerry.
Okay.
That's what radio is so great for. I have theater of the mind.
Okay. That's all you need is your mind.
We don't have a lot of time left. So the last question we had for Carl was, how has podcasting differentiated yourself from radio? I mean, are people, are you concerned with podcasting that it's going to challenge the radio show that you have and station, or how does that going to work?
No, it's just another funnel. We podcast some of our shows as well, and it's just another alternative. So radio listening is still at a maximum level and keeps growing as the population grows. So we don't see podcasting being a threat. We just see it as another funnel, another choice, just as over the years, when I grew up, we had 3 TV stations, and now there's a few thousand to choose from. So I don't see that as an issue. Particularly the thing do that podcasting can't. We're hyper-local. If there's a SIG alert on the 14 freeway, we're the ones that are going to cover it, not a podcast. This Santa Clarita is the poster child for disasters, whether we've had floods, earthquakes, tunnel explosions, school shootings, etc., and many fires. We can cover it because we know the community. We can be instant. We can be live, and we've got the information accurately and the connection, so can give out the information that even the LA station can't when there's an emergency in this area. And certainly podcasting, you might as well listen to the podcast in the Smithsonian if they're going to cover a fire.
That is a very good point. And when you talk about connections, obviously you've known, by being local, you know the head people, and you can just pick up the phone, call up somebody, and say, "Listen." Whereas CBS or even the national CNN could not do that. So that really is a very interesting point.
And there's even another layer to it, and that is that we have a relationship with the first responders on multiple amounts of levels. So we can share information with each other and have a trust of being accurate with that information. Or if there's information that we need to know, but they don't want disseminated out, they know they can tell us, and we're not going to disseminate it out, so they won't get burned. So because of that, the community is a lot safer, and we're able, as a team, not just the radio station, but all the first responders, as a team to navigate through some of the challenges in a way that other communities can't.
Thanks, Carl. Jerry, so if somebody wants to get in contact with KHTS and they have either an idea for a concept, or they want to get a website done, or get more information, where would they contact?
They could call up at 661-298-1220, or they can email me at Jerry, Jeri, at hometownstation.com.
And what are the services you offer besides website and SEO?
We do podcasting, we do the Sacramento trip, the DC trip, the Home and Garden show.
That sounds great. Tracy, you wanted to get some information about Ask Brien?
Yes, well, speaking of podcasting, if you've enjoyed the show and want to re-listen to it, or if you want to tell your friends about it to listen later, please go to your favorite podcast listening platform, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcast, and follow and download the Ask Brien podcast. That's Ask Brien, Brien podcast. And we'd love it if you leave us a 5-star review, and also share it with your friends and fans yourself, and put it out there in social media. And that's the Ask Brien podcast.
Well, super duper. So, and it's, by the way, it's supercalifragilistic, makes me alidocious. But the show is over. Dun dun dun. What is this wording? Okay, 1220 and 98.1 FM, the Ask Brien Show. Over and out.